And so I like to stick to that. My name is Sabori, and I come from District 6 on the Gila River Indian community here. And what I'm going to talk about and what we're trying to bring awareness to is our Saguaro and what's happening to this cactus, not only now, but it's been going on, but they're finally becoming aware that it's affecting us more. Out on our end of the mountain in the Australias, in the last 2 years, we've lost around 26 cacti that I know of. That's how many I've seen fall down. And we're talking about some that are very old. And they're the same ones that my grandma and them used to pick the fruit off a long time ago. And so now they're laying on the ground, and it's kind of bittersweet in a way because I make my art out of the ribs, so it's kind of good for me that they fall. But it's not good for us because of the fruit and the stuff that we pick from it and what it does for the ecosystem. Come on in, folks. Hope you brought something to sit on. Yep, come on in. Mm-hmm. Cushion. And so when I do my art, one of the things I like to do with it is when I'm out and about, especially if I'm on that side of the reservation, I like to talk about these things to them so that they become aware of what's going on. And I think that because of the increase of the heat that's going on and the way the weather has really changed, it has affected us and our saguaro. And I'll get more into how important that is, not only to the plants and the animals in the area, but to our bat and the stories and stuff that go with those things. I'll touch on a lot of that. So to start off with, I want you to watch this little film, and you can go back and pick this one up on YouTube. And it's the one that we did in a collaboration with the guy from ASU. And I didn't want to do it at first, but then I had to start remembering what a lot of my parents and them had told us about how we have to work with other people in order to get things accomplished. And so that was the whole idea behind this. And so we'll go ahead and start this. And then after it's done, then I'll discuss more about it. But this really touches on a lot of good things.
I'm completely speaking. I think the people who live in Phoenix, it really is part of our connection to place. This iconic plant.
It's a very visual context, very charismatic. It's everybody associates the desert with the saguaro.
You say Arizona and everybody does this. Like mimicking a saguaro. That's the cultural identity. That's been the cultural identity for hundreds of years.
And experts say a major sprouting event has been seen in decades.
It's so hot out here. This is just surviving.
Take a look. This is a video of a cactus that fell right on a house in Phoenix.
Sabori. We're out here in the Saguaro, Australia. This is where I grew up hunting. There was a man by the name of Sylvester Matthias. He's the one that showed me how to start working with this kind of material. There's a long process to go before I can start cutting, but I use a silversmith saw to cut in the circle, square, wherever I want to cut out of it, and I do just about the same as a silversmith does, except it's wood. And it splits a little bit different, but it's really a beautiful wood to work with.
Other indigenous groups, they respect and utilize the saguaro in every stage of its life, and they use it. The roots are used for structures. The fruits, they make wine from the fruits.
One of my most favorite things to do is to pick the body batch, the fruit of the saguaro cactus, and it happens every summer. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Our plants are not acting like they used to. Before you could tell when you get ready to plant.
We used to pick in July. We could always benchmark it being done. 4th of July weekend being out there picking.
Our typical new year starts around June, but it has to do with the harvesting of the Saguaro plant. We harvest and then we have a wine festival that we used to call the monsoons, and that's how the rain comes and stuff like that. And so when we're not able to do that on a regular basis like that, then it improves us all to keep fruits already have been gone. But this is a small piece of one. It's dry right now. When we pick them, this is what we're looking for on the very top. And we compete with the birds out here to get to the very juicy part, the pulp of it. And sometimes you can find it laying down here where we can just pick them up and eat them, and it's like candy. The pilots or the fruit of the saguaro is now growing on the side of the saguaros. That didn't used to happen, and that's scary. And I know when the old people, the old ladies would see it, they would just cry because they knew something was changing. And that's a good about it, a lot of it.
What we've experienced twice now, in only the space of a few years, in 2020 and 2023, is significantly less rainfall in the summer, which is a critical period for rain.
Watching the saguaro, there's been a disease that's been getting at them, and now you can see the effects of what happens to really some really big ones here. And it affects it because there's no more fruit we're going to be getting off of this one.
When you have too little water, then the tissues can actually weaken.
This summer 2023, the National Weather Service, they categorized the amount of monsoon rain that we received as trace amounts.
Climate change is having effect the timing or the intensity of our rains.
We can't really determine when we're going to go pick something anymore because they're not acting the same way.
We did our survey last year here on the hill. We found like 3 or 4 individuals that had flowers. Total, like out of 4,000 saguaro.
For example, in July, there was a run of 16 nights where the temperature did not go below 90 degrees. And if you go back 50 or 100 years, the high overall was 96.
In the 1930s, there were all these tall, and it was almost like a forest of saguaros. And now that certain area, there's 90% fewer large, mature plants out there.
300 fall like this. Basically, I use one is down here. That's the base of it. The base is a lot bigger, a lot wider, so when I split it, I can go ahead and get my jewelry out of it. This is where we get our walking sticks out of it, and our storage sticks can come out of this also. Because when I see things and I'll create out of it. And so this right here it's really a treasure trove for me. Somebody like me, I'm looking at it and I'm already thinking about what I can do with maybe the arms and things like that, you know. But it's a protected plant on the reservation, but also in Arizona. It's just sad to see that this big majestic saguaro just laying here. We don't watch out for the saguaro and try to find out why this disease is killing it. So we won't have these left. And everything that's sustainable to that is not going to survive.
Over 100 other animal species rely on saguaros at some point in their life cycle, whether that's feeding on the nectar in the flowers or feeding on the pollen or eating the juicy fruits. All of those species, the impacts are very direct. We lose the big saguaros and we lose those birds.
So the largest saguaro in my yard, it's in my front yard, it collapsed. It was just speechless. And I was staring at it and just thinking, no.
But we're fortunate too because we got a little guy right here. And he was very healthy, and you could see how he's covered in thorns completely. So it's a lot harder for the animals to get to him. We're not doing a good job. We're not doing a good job of taking Mother Earth. And if we don't get her picked out, then why should she even give us fruits to harvest? Why should she take care of us if we're not taking care of her?
Here we go. So this young man right here that is the one that was taking the pictures and doing his dissertation on it for his master's. He's also an indigenous person, but he's from the north. And so he wanted to learn more about the Saguaro, so he came, and we were at the Botanical Gardens at that time. That's where I was at today also. And anytime that we can talk about these things that are going on in our deserts and on the reservation and all over, the more we can talk to people, the more allies we have when we have to deal with this type of deal. And so in there, you heard the man talk about at one time, there was only eight saguaros that flowered. Well, that's kind of what happens out here on our side. This past year, I went out there, and of course, the birds already got most of it. But I think because of the heat, they were ripening quicker. And so when we weren't picking them, we were losing a lot of them to the birds. But also, there wasn't as many as before either. Last year, there was a lot more. And I noticed that when I went out there, because I go out to our mountains a lot, and I do a lot of hiking and stuff out there still. I use one of these right here. This is one of the things I made out of it. But I use a walking stick for myself because I'm getting old and the knees don't work like they used to. So these are some of the things that I use to educate on. And I put my artwork into it, and when I do, some of them have little stories behind them. So when I'm putting something together and I'm putting my artwork, I have an idea that when I put it together, that what I want to do is also educate the people that I'm going to sell it to or give to out there. I want them to also understand how important this plant is to us as an indigenous nation, as a Pima people, the Akimel O'odham, Dona O'odham, Anya Akimel, and Akchin peoples, and how important it is for us to continue to do this, to go out and harvest them. And for us and for myself, I built a lot of the vatos, the arbors, and so when they fall, like I was saying in there, it's kind of a treasure trove because now I'm going to use those for the tops. And if we're going to build the traditional homes, the oldest keys or whatever, I'll use them for the size of it. And we use that to educate our youth about that and how a long time ago we used to do that. Today, that kind of a structure, the scientists call green because it comes from the land. And if in the old days when they would build the mud houses, when they went from using the cactus ribs to the 1x4s and then the railroad ties, the house wall was usually about almost 18 inches. And so when they put the mud in there and they put it up, and you would never know the house was a mud house, especially when they put the cement on the outside and the sheetrock and stuff on the inside. But 18 inches, the scientists have found out that 18 inches is enough to keep the heat in and keep it cool in the summer. And we're mostly in summer here. So those kinds of homes are very efficient for us. But when we look at these things like this about the Saguaro, and I like talking to the people on that side, especially because I want them to understand what's going on because it affects them. We were talking to some people from Canada today. And we started talking to them, and I told them the same thing, that this affects them too, and their climate up there affects us down here. And the more we're going with the heat, like she was talking to, this lady was talking about the heat. Right now, at night, if our temperatures are at 90 degrees at midnight, that's when the Saguaro really tends to start growing or start using its ability to help the desert. And so if it's at 90 degrees at night, what's happening is that Saguaro is what I believe is what I call stressing. And they're stressing about what's going on. And if that happens, then we see, like I was saying it here, my mom and my grandma and them, we were going to go pick the fruit. And we're talking about the 70s. This is when we first kind of started seeing this stuff. And the fruit was on the side of the cacti. And the ladies there just physically started crying about it because it scared them. They didn't know what was going on. And these are the plants that they've been picking. Probably my grandma had been picking since she was little. And my mom always picked them too. And yet now these plants weren't acting the way that they saw. And for somebody like me, it didn't really seem too alarming because I didn't see them like that till later. But when I do my art, I try to incorporate these things in it. I try to incorporate it so that, like, if I make a medallion or something like this, and I put the swirl on it, and before I sell it to them, I try to let people know what it's about. I try to let them know about this and that we have to take care of it, because this kind of a problem, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take everybody. But we also have to remember that, as in our culture, the more we go pick, the more we're going to get. If we go pick more of the violets, if we go pick more of the fruit, then that cactus is going to respond by putting more up there for us. And one year, we didn't have no hanam, which is the cholla buds, and we didn't have no fruit on the Australias. And that was a very scary thing. And when we did finally see them, they were doing it in December. The plant was acting in December. And, it's because that's when I go hunting out there. And we're looking at them and we're like, wait a minute. And so I took a picture of some, what they call wolfberry wobble up against the mountain. And it has a berry on it in December. And I was up against the mountain and I was walking. So I took some pictures of that because I wanted to record what was going on. And the best way, when I would talk to people about it, they didn't seem so interested. But when I connected it to my art and I started showing them my art and I explained it to them, they seemed to take more interest about what was going on. And that's the important part, because we want these allies. We want these people to help us, because this is affecting us here, but it's also affecting them on that side. And today when I was at the botanical talking to them folks, I had at least 3 people stop by that said that they had, their cacti had also fell this year, just flopped over. And they were talking about at the base of it, and there's holes in it, and the liquid, so the water's coming out and it's kind of turning to a rot down there. And that's that disease, I believe, that I think they mentioned it like in the 80s, but I don't think anybody really followed through on it. And so that's what's been affecting our cacti, our saguaro. And that also has a lot to do with the climate in the desert. If the saguaro isn't putting fruit up, then the bat can't come, and the bat can't take that and pollinate other things. And like he told you, 100 animals are associated to just that saguaro. But in the old way, when the old people would tell us about that all the time, and the things that we did when we picked it, the way we picked it, the songs we sang, those were all important, because then we're telling that plant that we need it still. And so we're talking to it and we're saying, we need you, and we need you to still do this for us. So I didn't understand, because I was kind of young, but I didn't really understand how the elders, my grandma must have been about, I'd say 73 at the time, and how it really affected her when she saw that on the side. It didn't affect me that much, They just saw it on the side. It's a little bit weird, yeah, but then we picked them, and they were good fruit or whatever. But we also have to think about it too. Maybe it's adapting. Maybe it's trying to adapt to the weather, and maybe it's trying to survive on its own. Maybe it's doing this. We don't know. Because even though the fruit is coming out, the base of the cacti is all almost gone. And there was a picture in here where they showed it, where you could see the ribs inside the cactus. There's a lot of them like that out in the Australias right now. And we just recently had a fire there in Santa Cruz. And that fire reached up into some of the lower hill parts, but a lot of those cacti that were closer, that were really producing really good fruit, they got burnt. So we're not going to be able to pick those. Hopefully they'll come back, because the cactus are really, really resilient in their survival. So hopefully, I'll be keeping an eye on those, and hopefully those will come back. I don't know. There's the old villagers used to be in that area, so that's why a lot of the folks used to go there to pick. I'm not sure yet on the what's going to happen. I saw one out there that had one on there, but it looked like it was, I don't know how you would say it, like maybe it was left over, but it still looked like it was, red. And I was looking at it, and it was just one little one, but I'm like, you're supposed to go too, you're going to be sitting here waiting. And so when I was growing up, and then they would tell us when we go out there hunting and stuff, or we go out there harvesting or going after wood or things like that, my grandpa and them always made sure that we always be real respectful of these things. So we just didn't go out and harvest it. We also left water there or something for that, to stink it, for us allowing us to do it. Or my grandpa used to sing these songs, about these things, and that's what he would sing. But then we would start in, and usually the times that my grandpa, he would be the one to tell us, okay, it's time to go pick. And he would tell my mama and my grandma, and everybody would get in, and then we'd head out. And that was just an every year thing when we were growing up. It's just what we did. And I grew up with a lot of people in my family, a large family, so there was a lot of us in the pickup trucks, and sometimes we had this little station wagon we took out there also. And then we would have our picnic, and then we would leave some food there for them, and we would go through them. Now, in that area that we used to pick, there's already less cacti in that area. Now, I don't know how that's going to affect the deer in that area, because that was a good hunting place, but it's not anymore. And I'm not sure how it's going to affect the animals in that area also. But right now, as of that fire that happened in Santa Cruz, and it burned along the second bridge right by the church there, right now, the animals that we usually find out further, that's where they're hanging out now, in that burned out area. I went out there, and I have some pictures that I took of the hoof prints of the deer, and there was 4 of them, which is really good, but one of them had really big hoofs, so that might be a male, or it might be a big female. I couldn't distinguish. But I also happened to be there and looked at another, and it was a kit box print. I sent it to DEQ, and I asked the biologist over there I told him what I thought it was, and he wrote back and said he concurred it was a kit box. Now, we haven't seen one of those in that area in a long time, probably 10 years. So now we see it, and so again, the nutrients and everything from this fire are like bringing these animals from the mountains closer, but also right in that fire within, 2 weeks, the salt cedar already started sprouting. They already started growing out on the sides. So I called DEQ again and said, hey guys, what can you do with this? Because they have a crew that does that. And so that's what I was saying, because right now that whole area that burnt and all that stuff that we're putting there, that ashes, whatever, we can replant a lot of the mesquite, the saguaro, whatever we need to in that area, and probably kind of like take control of it and see what we can do to help so that these things start to get stronger and do better for us. The more we can teach our youth about this stuff, especially the bidets and the fruit. I did a training, or I did a session with Sacaton Elementary School, and it had to be on geometry is what it was. So I used my designs and the fret as it. But in that process, we went out to the mountains to pick the bidets with them. And those kids over there, when they got done, what they did with the bidets was so amazing. But they made salsas, jello, and they mixed it with whipped cream and stuff like that, and then they cooked. Of course, I ate it because it was all right there, and we're eating it. But also up in that Sacaton area, they have a lot of these saguaro that are around the sand. And so when those birds were getting to them, and the fruit is falling to the ground, you could pick it up right there, and it would be hard. And all you'd have to do is clean it off, and you could eat it. And it was real sweet. And so even in that area, they're starting to become less. And so it's kind of alarming to see it. And I'm not sure what needs to be done. That's why I'm relying on the scientists. But also as a people, if we understand this, maybe we can go out more. Maybe the ones that know the songs that they sing for these things, maybe they can do that. And maybe that's what we need. Maybe they just need to hear us too, our people saying, hey, you know what, we still need you. So that's what, when I do my art, I try to incorporate that in there. I try to incorporate a lot of these things. So most of my art will have a Saguaro on it somewhere. I'll put it on there for that reason, because I want people to remember that. I want people to know that this is very important to us. And now the scientists are really getting into it in a sense that when this guy made this film last year, and they talked about it, the botanical lost 12 of their cacti. And to them, that's a lot. That's a lot that they lost. But so they were kind of alarmed at it also. But it was funny because the majority of the people I talked to were like from the Scottsdale area, and they were really upset because their big ones were just, they were losing them left and right, and they didn't know what to do with them, you know. And I said, well, after they rot, then I can use it. I'll take it from you when you do that part. Because on that side in Arizona, you have to have a permit to do it. And so what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to talk to the Tonto National Forest, so that, because that is our ancestral land, we're trying to see if they'll allow us to pick over there. Like on the way past Fort McDowell and you're going up towards Payson, if you see on both sides where that big fire was, there's a lot of these there. And so we're building more vatos. You know, we're starting to use them more, and we don't have enough out here. We just don't. But we don't want to stop building these things, because the stories that go with building that vato to our young men or to the people that help now that we just tell them, it's very important to continue that. It kind of helps our culture to go on. You know, when I would go out with the old men when I was very young, and we would pick the arrow wheats for the vatos, and that's where they would tell us about what we were supposed to do. They would tell us as we're cutting, and they would be telling us, oh guys, you know, they're over here talking, but they're talking to us about these things in our village. They're letting us know what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to do this. I was very small at that time in structure, so there's a guy by the name of Michael Tashkin, Big Mike. He used to pick me up and put me on top of the vato where we had our feast, and I was the one that was up there that they gave the arrow wheats to, so that we could fill that whole thing up. And that's gone now. There's homes there now. That whole vato's gone, and it was a lot of years that had been there. But what they taught us about it, and what they taught us how to use these things, that needs to continue. We need to keep spreading that out. But in the process, we need to utilize what we can, and that's where I was talking about my artwork. It's why I do it a lot of times, is because I want people to learn about it. I want them to know that don't just go out there and start shooting that cacti up, you know, with your guns. Don't be doing that, you know, because that to us is a living thing, but it also has a lot of stories, but we believe in it has a spirit also. And so we don't want to do that to it, and it's hard to do that. I did that when I was young, and I told my grandpa, and I had to go and dig the trash pit because I got in trouble for doing that. That was my punishment. Back then, we used a lot of those then. And so there was a lot of shovel work, things we had to do. And I was very fortunate that my grandpa lived right behind me. So I grew up around him a lot, you know, and he's the one that, his discipline to us was different than my mom. My mom and dad just spanked us, you know, that was what they did. But when grandpa would get to us and he would talk to us, and of course he was talking in autumn, but when he talked to us, sometimes you would sit there and it'd be a couple of hours by the time he's done. And you felt short, real small. But you understood what he meant. You understood what he meant about that land. You understood about, say, that coyote that's going by. You understood about that. So when we do certain artwork like this one right here, I wish I had one of them old overhead projectors that they used to have in grade school. You know, you put this thing on there and it shows. But anyway, this one right here, this design right here is the Milky Way. It's the story about the Milky Way, as I was told when I was young. That's the coyote print right there. That's a coyote print. And the coyote had a big thing to do with the Milky Way. And when we were young and we'd be outside and he'd be telling us, it's the winter time, so it's real clear then. And of course, the city lights didn't really affect us. We could see real good then. And he would tell us about these things. And that particular story talked about how we as a people, especially myself, how we're not supposed to be hurting the people, and we're not supposed to be stealing from them. Because what happened, I'm going to go ahead and let this out there. I stole my dad's cigarette, and I thought I got away with it, but somehow they knew. And so this story tells us that there's always somebody watching us. Not to come crazy. There's always somebody. And so this is when he sat me down and he explained this story to me. And so I had to sit there. And if I started fidgeting and didn't follow, he would start over. And so then I'd have to sit there longer. And you know, it's summertime, school's out. I want to be out there running around. I don't want to be sitting by Grandpa. But later on, I thank my mom for that, because this is where I learned this from. This is where I got it from. And when I talked about it to some of the elders, and I mentioned about these things, and most of them are gone. In fact, all of them are. One of the things that they explained to us is that in order to preserve a lot of these things, we have to continue to do what we did. We have to go out there and pick at that time. We have to go and pick the hunt and the squawberry or the wolfberry, whatever you want to call that. Yeah, we have to pick those. And they would always say that, why should they give us any more if we don't take it? Why should we even grow? So like the arrowweed that you use, and I do this right now, I get after people all the time and I tell them, don't cut it up high. Don't just take the big part. Take it from the bottom. Because what's happening is they're mutating and they're starting to branch out this way, so that they're not laying good on the vatos anymore. They don't work like they used to. And they don't last. It seems like when the winds come, they don't hold like they used to. They tend to blow off easier. And so that's why I tell them, take it from the bottom. And when we go in there, and right there by Lone Butte, there's a ditch there. We've been 30, 35 years, maybe or longer, we've been picking from there. And we have a good crop there all the time. And right when you cut them, you can come back in 3 months and you'll see the green ones start coming up straight again. That's because we're using them. So we're getting it given back to us. If you have a bean and you're picking your bean plants, but you leave that bean on there and it dies on there, most of the time that plant won't even survive either. So we have to go out and we have to take care of it and take it for us. And that way we're utilizing something. And I think maybe this is what's happening with the Saguaros. It's stressed out about us. It's stressed that we're not doing this anymore. But if we did, can you imagine how much more we would be in tune to not only out there, but to our people, to the feelings that we have and stuff like that and what we're doing. This is what most of these stories that my grandpa talked about was these kinds of feelings that these plants. He always would get after us and tell us to use these. You know, just sit there and listen. Because I said, yeah, you know, you play your music. He says, well, how can you hear what they're saying if you're playing your music? Okay, you can understand that. You know, because to us, going in the desert as boys, you know, running around, playing music, all that was what we did. But when we started to finally listen to what was being said out there, then a lot of the understanding for these plants started to come. The animals that are around where we camp out there right now, we've had bobcats, we've had the turtle, and now we have this kit fox. But also we have a lot of quail. And I was out there about 2 weeks ago, and I was out there in the evening and it started getting dark. And the coyotes, which is a whole nother story because we really have a lot of them and nobody's really controlling them, but they started to come around me and I could hear them, right? And then all of a sudden, the quails came. And the quails were sitting there, and they were really hollering and everything. And I told them, I said, hey, I didn't start this fire. You know, don't get mad at me about it. And I'm telling these quails this stuff. And I'm telling this, and then they leave, right? But then I could hear them, and those coyotes were moving around, and those quails were flying up. So I knew the coyote was over there. And then they flew up over here, so I knew they were over here. So I kind of could keep an eye on them, and it was those animals that were doing it. They were the ones that were taking care of me out there. And then I understood what they were doing, and then, you know, I kind of felt bad for getting after them for getting mad at me. But what I'm saying is that when we do these things and we just sit there and we allow Mother Nature to talk to us in the old way, that's what they used to tell us. That's all we got to do sometimes. If we're having troubles, if we go out there and we look at this guy, I think this guy is having more trouble than I am, you know, once I see him. He's stressing more. And these guys are older than us, and their wisdom is way more than what we have. And so that's why I think the older people used to do that. I think that's just what they taught us, because some of the words and the language and the singing of it were always dealt with things like that. And so when they asked me to come, and this is what I wanted to talk about, I told them because it's very important for us to sustain who we are, not only culturally, but as a people, but the ecosystem of the desert itself, where we live in that area. They estimate there's probably only 12 big sheep left in that area. But I know there's a little more than that. I told the biologist, I took him out there, and I told him, I said, no, I think there's a little more than that. Because some of them, they're coming more down the hill more, when they're up there. And that's what I was saying about those quails and the rabbits and everybody. It's like they're coming towards the village more. And I believe that's because we don't eat them as much as we used to. Quail, dove, rabbit, that's just what we grew up eating all the time. It was excitement for us boys to all load up in the pickup. And my mom or my dad would drive, and we'd go down the road. It used to be a Pecos road, and we'd just hunt and bring it home, and then we'd clean it and eat it, In the old days, when I shot my first rabbit with the bow, my grandma cleaned that one and cooked that one for us. And I tell people that kind of traumatized me, because we went to the pot. She told me to go get to eat, and so I got the little stool and I got up there and I put the ladle in the pot. And when I pulled it up, it was that rabbit's head right there. So I put it back in and I got a leg out of there and I ate that. But my grandpa, when he got that thing, he really enjoyed it. But that's how they were. They ate everything. They used everything. It wasn't, to them, it was nothing. To us, it was, kind of, whoa. But now, and then the things that they did, like my mom, she used to bread it like chicken fried steak. And so my sister Mandy would eat it. And she said, well, I don't like rabbit, but she would be eating it, but she didn't know it was rabbit because it was chicken fried steak, And of course, it had the potatoes and the gravy with it. So you see what I'm saying? But we eat it, And we're not doing that as much. I got in trouble for hunting rabbit on Santa Cruz Road, and I was shooting the rabbit from the truck, the car. And the police stopped me right there, and they told me I can't be shooting like that. And I said, I've been doing this about 50 years. And they said, well, it's shooting from a vehicle is illegal, right? And I understand that law. I know what it means, but I was so used to doing it. So I went home and I told my mom about it. This is when she was still around. And my mom goes, they don't know nothing. So she just blew it off. They don't know. But the things that we used to do a long time ago, we just have to do them a little bit different now. And if we can get our young ones to understand, the younger generation to understand that maybe they need to study about this. Maybe they need to find out how we can take care of that. Because the more fruit we have and the more people we go out there to harvest it, when we're putting it together, when we're making the sito, and we're making all this stuff with it, and we're taking that and we're putting it over here because we have to call the rains with it and stuff. Imagine everybody getting together to do that. Imagine telling them everything, teaching them over again. My granddaughter, she was really young at the time, but I took her out there. I didn't think she would handle it because she's like me and she was going to get burnt. But we went out there and we did it, and I told her how to do it with the Bidetch and put it there with the rain or whatever. And about a couple of days later, they were in Glendale, and it started raining. And Susanna, my daughter, she said, hey, Grandpa was right. If we do that, it's going to rain. And I said, yes. Now I'm happy because I know somebody it's going to carry on to somebody else. So the next generation is going to do it. But the way she said it, and I was like, yeah, try to be all muscle about it. It's because it's my granddaughter. But those kinds of things, if we can imagine doing that for a large group. When we first built that village at Rawhide, it's not there no more, but when we first built it, what we did was we planted, the kids came, about 260 kids in buses and from all over the rest. And they came, and what they did was we had Robert Stone, and what we did was we used one of these to plant the old way. And so he put the hole, and the next person put the seed in there, and we did that whole area like that. And then come October, when the pumpkins came, then they harvested them. So we got to show those kids how the old people did that. I remember doing that with the fields that my dad used to lease and O'odham Enos bought, used to take care of them, because that's how we did it with my grandpa one time, right? Instead of using the tractor, we did it this way. And he said, because we had to learn. And so we went one way, and one person had the bag, and the one had the stick, and you open it, and the guy behind it put the seed in and close it and go to the next one. We get to the end, we turn around and then switch sides. And so that's how, and you know, it didn't even take that long to do it. But it was more of the unity, the being together and talking about it, you know. And then at night we would go and watch the fields and stuff like that. And then when it started becoming the harvest, then we were growing white corn, maize. And so we were watching it, but there's a lot of the guys that are gone now, but I used to go out there and we would go get them corn and we'd roast them right there, as we're supposed to be watch guards, you know, but we got to eat too, so we're roasting it. And some of them we put under the ground just like they showed us. And so we were continuing something that we were taught. And we're doing it now. We don't have the water we have, but we're going to get it. It's coming. The pipes are coming. The things are coming like that. So when it comes, we want to be ready. We want to be ready to do what we can to further our culture. I have some seeds that I'm hanging on to, and a lot of them are pima beans and some of the pima corn and stuff like that. I'm holding on to them until we get that water in the West End area, and then I want to see if we can grow them there and see what happens. Well, I think we kind of have to look at that idea also with these guys, you know, the Saguaro. We kind of have to keep an eye on them, and especially this past summer it was one of the hottest. So I'm not sure how they're doing. I've seen some of them, and they're already starting to have that hole, and they're starting to come out. But we just have to wait to see what a storm does. It may knock them over, and it may not. They may survive. Like I said, they may be adapting to what's going on. That's maybe why it's going to the side and not staying on top, because of the heat. Because that's where at night, that's where the Saguaro does most of its stuff, is on top. And so that's what we're talking about. Does anybody know how old one of these can live to? 250? Some can. 200's a good number, they say, but around 175. It can take 10 years for it to grow 1 inch. 10 years for one to grow 1 inch. So the one that's outside my mom's house right now, it's about this big, but I remember when she planted it when it was real small. And now it's about that high. It doesn't have any arms on it. They say that it takes from about 60 to 80 years for the first arm to come out for a Saguaro. That's how long it takes them to grow. And they can reach heights of, 50 feet. And some older ones were 250, but there are some that are not only going up to 200, but they're not going that far now. And so they're kind of wondering about that also, because the scientists are starting to prove that this guy right here, the Saguaro, and the importance of it to the ecosystem. Even the plants that are out there, you heard that man talking about it earlier, 100 animals, but that's not counting the plants that rely on it either. And we used to see a lot of bats out there in the Santa Cruz area, but they're not that many now. There's still some, but not that many. And yet they're the ones that take care of this one too. And the songs that we have about that also, they talk about these things. So we kind of need to start, I'm not sure how, but just by doing my art, just by bringing the awareness to it, I hope that's going to start getting us to start looking at it more, our people more. Maybe go out and start picking more, maybe start doing it. I try to get some of the young guys to do some of this carvings, but it takes a lot, and it's a little harder. But like this one here, when I did the eagle on it, it took a long time to do it, but this wood, I don't know why it does it so well, but it carves really well. But if you peel it, you can peel it here and it'll keep on going all the way down here. So you have to learn how to cut it. And once you learn how to do that, then it's easier to work with. The guy that I learned it from, and I'll use his name, but he's gone. His name is Sylvester Matthias, but we called him Chura Vista. And he was just a little old man in our village. But this is where I learned to do this stuff from. When we used to have our feast long time ago in St. John's, he used to come by and he would sell these little birds that he would make. And then one day my mama told me, she said, you got to go over there and sit with him. He's going to teach you something. And back in those days, we didn't say no. You told to go, you went over there. And so that's what we did. And I'm very grateful that she did that for me. We would go to the St. John's church there at the school. They had a little square area there. And we would sit there and he would talk to us about these things. And he would be showing us how to do this in carving. I have one of his rasps that he made. It's about 45 years old, I think, maybe a little bit longer. And he gave that to me a long time ago. And it's kind of a big one. It's like what I'm talking about. It's like this instrument right here. That's rasps like that. But his is curved and it's a little bit longer. And I have it. And I'm really stingy with it, if that's the right word. But I do show it. But because he made it, he made it for me. But I learned to use these things. Like this is from the top. But this is how I make my beads. I hand make them, I hand drill them, I hand sand them. But this is the part I look for. And then when I use this part here to make the walking stick, that's from the middle of it, the middle of the Saguaro. And then when I do my jewelry, in order to get a piece that is big enough that I can make like a quail like this one is, or I can make it one that's round like this one here, I use it from the base of it. So when I make my spoons, I also make them from that base also, from the bottom. And this is a lot easier to make spoons from than it is the mesquite is. The old way that they used to do the mesquite, and when you make your first notch, and then you get the coal from the fire and you put it in and what I'm talking about is the root of the mesquite. And you put it in there and they blow on it. And then they clean it out and then they get another one and put it back in there. So they make the spoon. Well, when I started making spoons and forks and stuff like that, because Sabori, he's the one that had made one. And so I copied that from him. And I found that it was a lot easier if I used a sharp knife. And those old guys, they didn't rush anything when they were working on it. They took their time. You would sit there with them and they would take a long time. Then you just hear them talking about everything, talking about these places where they went hunting, how to go out here and do those things. And our environment is changing on us. And I am really sure that our Saguaro are stressed out about what's going on. And we're having fires left and right, even up north, and that's what I told those Canadian people about their environment affects us down here also. And so we kind of have to keep an eye on that in the future. And how do we do that? By becoming aware, just talking about it. And that's what that's one of the main things I started doing it, was so that I could talk to people. Because when I explained it to them before, they didn't really get it. But if they can wear it, then it reminds them of what this is. And the story behind them, the designs that I put on them, like a lot of the basket designs I used are the same ones that my grandma used to make. They're the same ones that she done. And there's another lady in our village named Ruth Giftbot. And she's the one, the first time I heard about this, I was taking her to the store to get the groceries. And we were going through the village and we're headed to the store, and there was a mesquite tree there, and they called that a kui. And she said, she was telling me about it. She called me Gooby again. That's my older brother. I said, no, I'm Aaron. But anyway, what she said was that tree didn't know how to act anymore. So this is back in the 70s, it's about 76, because I was about 16 at that time, around that area, somewhere in there. But she's the first one that mentioned that to me about that stuff. But then again, being young, not thinking, not really thinking about those things back then. But now we look at them, we see it. So our elders actually were telling us about these things. We just didn't pay attention. Till now, it's starting to come back. When I'm out here, I hear all those people, because I always tell people that I was very fortunate in my village that the whole village raised us, everybody, They all took care of us. They all get mad at us. The older guys in our village, when we would do stuff that we weren't supposed to, stuff that they called stupid, whatever, the older guys would always come up to us little guys and they would go like this behind our heads, Hey, how come you're doing that? Don't be doing that stuff. So later on, when we would do it again or we would do something we're not supposed to, we kind of remembered that. Oh, I didn't know. So when they would come around, we start moving away from them because we know they're gonna do this again to us. But what they were doing is they were taking care of us. They were teaching us, you know, and that anybody in the village could do that. They would get mad at you. It didn't matter what family, whatever. They would just get after you. If we were throwing rocks at a building, you get after you. They just get mad and tell you. But they didn't just holler. They told you why not to do it. You know, they kind of talked about it. And that's one of the things I think that I do miss the most about my village is that that kind of a conversation we used to have with the old guys and how they used to sit us down, you know, a lot of the older ones. And we shouldn't really be mentioning their names as much, but some of the older guys who were council members, some of them were judges when the courts were first opened, my godfather, things like that. And the wisdom and what they told us is relevant today. In 1968, my grandfather told me that up there, the Australian mountains, that those mountains would disappear. Now, we didn't know at that time what he meant, or we didn't understand it, or I didn't. But I told the nuns at school, and I got in trouble for that, for telling stories, right? So my mom and them asked me, but I didn't tell her who told me all that stuff. I never did. But as I got older, and I finally started realizing what he was talking about, and we forgot to take care of it. We are the ones that forgot about that mountain. The people, we forgot to take care of it. And that's what I'm saying about these. I want to try to let us know that, you know, when I do my art and you wear it, or just kind of remember what's going on right here. Because this has an effect on us, a big effect on us as a people. If we don't utilize it, you know, to go out there. And we got together out there about 3-4 weeks ago with a bunch of men. We got together and the young boys. And it was a good one because they brought carne asada, chicken asada, pork chops, hot dogs, beans, and we cooked it with a mesquite right there, and everybody's eating. But the conversation we talked about was about these things like this. And then we're lucky because then another one would talk about how he grew up with his grandpa, his grandma, and then talk about what they talked about in their family and things like that, because every family had what they did, and then there's what the village did. And so it's really interesting when you sit down and you start hearing about these things, you know. And that way it's sharing again. And we just need to start, I think we just need to start doing it more. I'm working in a way, or not really working, but kind of bugging them more, DEQ, about these things, because that's their job. And they got a biologist now. And that biologist is a pretty good guy. I took him out there to the desert and I ran around with him for a while because I wanted to find out if he was really going to help our people or not. So I kind of guided him away from what he was looking for. But when I found out that he had a good heart, then I took him to what he was asking about and let him see. And so I told him that I'm going to be bugging you about these things. He's more interested about the animals around this, and the other part in his departments are the ones that take care of the plants and whatnot. And so I notified them and showed them, I sent those pictures to them about those salt cedars. Now, we had an invasion by a beetle that was killing the salt cedar, but then what do you do with that beetle after it's done? It's from Asia, it's not from here. So it's another invasive species that came in. Just like, you ever see those little yellow bulbs, the ones that grew, and they grew all over this past summer, those ones? It's not even from here. I don't know how that got here. It's invasive. But you saw how much it did. And I think when that fire in Santa Cruz, when they were fighting it, I think that's what was burning underneath it. So when they were doing the tanker drops and whatever, they weren't being able to put it out because it was climbing underneath the mesquite. And the reason I say that is because a long time ago when we used to go hunt, and we hunt the quail and the doves, that's what we would do, is we would get down on the ground underneath them. And then you can see those things running like that underneath them. And then we could shoot them like that. So all these things that I'm talking about, I incorporate into my jewelry, into my staffs, or into whatever I'm going to do. I do talking sticks also, and calendar sticks, and I incorporate them in them and trying to keep our culture alive in that way. In here, back there, they have a talking stick that, a calendar stick that's from I think it's 1832, 1921, something like that. But if you go look on there and you read about it, it has the Titanic on there, the wreck of the Titanic. That's our people that took care of that. because he then remembered what happened that whole year probably. But when you read that one, if you really read that, what happened to those from the 1800s to the 20s, if you really read on there, it's kind of an interesting read. Yeah, there's some tough people in there. But it also talks about when Salt River first got their water in their ditch. It talks about when Co-op got theirs. It talks about the last time that everybody from all the villages came, and even from Salt River, came to Hiller Crossing for the last very big dance they had over there. It talks about the wine ceremonies that they had over there. It talks about those things. That's what that calendar stick does. It reminds us about it. And so when I first saw that stick and I was able to look at it and I started reading about it, I realized that that was an opportunity to do almost the same thing with my art, to tell a story with it and what these things are and how we take care of them. And so I try to teach the younger guys, but it's very tedious. It's kind of over and over the same thing. And I do it by hand. I tell them they can use a machine if they want, but if they make one wrong move and it's a machine, then whatever they're doing is probably going to get ruined. But if you do it by hand, you can control everything and you can sand it. And there's one other thing that really surprised me, or is kind of important, and this is how I really got to learn about this, was in this cactus rip, there's a part of this bark that's dark brown. And when you put the hot iron to it when you're burning, and the aroma that comes from it, it just kind of mellows you out. And I wouldn't have known that, but when I was real young and Mr. Mathai or Chula Vista was telling us, he never told me about that until I went to talk to him. And I asked him about it because I had to go see him a few times. My mom, made me do this, and I did it. But when the next time I asked him about it, he said, yeah, it does. But he wanted to know if I was really interested in what he was going to tell me. So he wanted to know, and he said, oh, so you really worked with it? Yeah. So then he told me more. But he wanted to make sure, I guess, that I was really into it first before he gave me any more. And so I'm very fortunate that, like I said, that not only did my mom and them let me, but that he took the time to do that. He was our groundskeeper there on the St. John's. He did the fields and stuff like that. And the young guys and the older ones, we always used to play football on that field. We always grew up around there with him. And he would always stop by and just tell us, talk to us about that stuff. And so we were fortunate we had him in our village to tell us. And he's the one that did a lot of the carving with this. That's where I learned it from. I just started making jewelry out of it because my brother Gilbert, he was doing silversmithing at St. John's. And they were using to cut out the silver and stuff. And so when I started working with this, and I had a hard time with the regular saw to cut it and stuff, so I went and I finally got a coping saw, and I used it, and it came out really good. But once I got a jeweler's saw, it was easier to cut. And I could make those circles a lot better. And of course, I hand sand them, and I do all that because not only it's the control of it, but it's the feeling I get from it. And so when we do this stuff, I will tell you what they told me, the same thing. Don't do it if you're bugged. Don't do it if you're mad about something, if you're sad, whatever, don't do it. Because he said, and it kind of means this, and I'm not sure how he said it in the O'odham, but it'll jump on you. So if I'm mad, and I'm doing this, and I give it to you, maybe it might jump on you, and then you're going to get bugged and not know why. We don't know. And ladies, don't get mad at me for this, but we always say that when we get that coco hido and it's too hot, somebody was mad when they made it. Oh, dang, somebody was bugged when they made this one. That's what they meant by that, This thing can jump on you. And it literally means that, it's going to come to you like that. And so that's why when I make my jewelry or I work with them, I have to make sure my heart's good. The ibit here, right here. Ibit is the one that controls most of this stuff for me. So when I'm remembering my grandma's baskets and I'm putting it on the wood and I'm burning it, I can remember sitting with her when she was making them. I can remember what she said, and how she talked to us. And I also remember my grandpa and what he used to tell us. And one time, myself and my two brothers were out there, and Grandma, and she was making her basket. And so we're sitting here without there, and Grandpa comes out, and he says to us, in autumn, but he says to us, "What are you guys doing?" And we're all excited. "Oh, we're making baskets with Grandma," right? And then he gets real gruff with us, and he starts laughing. He goes, "Why? You guys don't need a husband." That's what he said to us. And so now, Donald, my brother, we could probably make baskets, but then there's Grandpa's. He's right there. He traumatized me about it. But in the old way, that's what it was. That's how it was. That's how they did things. So it reminds me, and I tried to pick it up one time. I thought I could do it, but then I heard Grandpa saying that again. Okay. Because we used to get all the stuff from my grandma. And I'm very fortunate that they did all that stuff then still. Everything. From the pinole to whatever you want to call it, the cattails, whatever they use, to the squash. There's one thing I can't do that I always tried to do for my grandpa was on the squash. He could take a knife and a little one that he had, and he could cut that squash so that it goes in a whole circle all the way down without breaking. I have not yet to do that. I just cut it straight this way now so I can get it up and hang it, you know. But those are things like he would tell us, and while they're doing it is when they would tell us these stories, when they would talk to us about these things, you know, when they would say stuff to us. And so we retained a lot of it. And so when I started doing my art, and I wanted to try to get people to understand about this, I figured that if I could put it on art, and they have it and they wear it, that maybe they'll think about it, that it'll remind them about this too. And somebody down the road, they might have a conversation, and then we'll start doing it. And so we have a lot of the academia right now looking into this, or trying to look into it. They can't date the Saguaro as they do other wood because there's no growth rings in it. What they come up with, and the way they do it, is that between 70 and 80 years, they grow their first limb. So like I said, 1 inch, it can take 10 years for it to grow just 1 inch when it first comes out. And if you go out in the desert and you look, most of the time they're in a bush when they're growing up. They're in that bush for protection. So that's where they're at, and then they start growing. So if we're looking at one, say that one with the arms right there, we're looking at, well, I bet you that guy's about 140 to maybe 160 years old. And upwards of 48 feet, maybe 50 feet on him. On that right there, with the multiple arms like that, you would think that we would get some fruit. That one particular one, I think, was where the hawk was living at. That's his nest up there. So that's where that man was talking about all these other animals that depend on it also. That's how important it is for them. The main thing that I wanted to share with you, folks, is that when I do work with the cactus and I do the art with it, it's the main purpose is that I want that person to kind of feel maybe what that is, kind of have a worry about it too. Because the more that we do, the more we're going to be able to take care of this. The more we go pick and we sing those songs when we do it, the more I think they'll grow more. And of course, like I was telling you, those people made all kinds of stuff with it, more than what we did when we were young, but why not? It tastes good. Yeah, especially the salsa. I like salsa, but that was really something different to put that cactus in the salsa. It surprised me. My mom and them made pudding and sito and the syrup and all that stuff, but this time they were put it right in, and whipped cream, they mixed it with that, and then they put that on top of the cake and stuff. Yes, that was awesome. But those are modern things that we can do right now with it to save it. But picking it is what we have to go do, I think. We have to start doing that, start going out there. And I know Tono, a lot of them still camp out at their areas that they've been in for a long time, those families. I have a lot of relatives over there that still do that, still go, and they go to the same place that their people have been going to for years. But we can't do that over here. Like I told you, the place we go to, it doesn't even produce them anymore. And the ones that burnt that we were getting them from, I haven't even told a young man, not that young, but a young man by the name of Jimmy Saunders, I haven't told him that where we picked that those cactus burnt. I didn't let him know yet. I haven't had a chance to talk to him. But that's where we picked them at that one time. Those are the cactus that burned that whole area right there. It didn't get up into the mountains. They saved it, but it got right on the edge of it, right at the beginning where they started. And that's where we picked because it was easy to get to. You don't have to walk that far. We're both old and we limp, so we have to try to get them closer. But not only is it with this thing that we have to watch that, but the beans, the different ones, the palo verde, the ironwood, those you can eat right when they're green. You can just pop them right in your mouth. They always tell us, we didn't quit eating them and put them in the bucket because that's what we came to do. It's supposed to be for the winter, And so my wife and I, we went out there and we did some. And what she did was she froze it. And so during the whole winter, we were able to have that. And I can't say that word, but Edamundi, that's what they say, yeah. I don't eat those, so I don't really know what they taste like, but I know what that tastes like, and it's good. But it's the nutrition that it gives us that we're not thinking about. And the way we go, one of the things I know right now is that with the Saguaro, especially with the seed, the black seed in it, a lot of the people now that do those marathons, they run, they're looking into that because they're saying that just a spoonful of that seed is enough nutrition to keep you going. And so it kind of makes sense that when our autumn runners long time ago, because before we got the horse, that's how we traveled. That's why they only carried like the mesquite flour, the viot, and then they would make the cookies out of it, and they'd have those seeds in them and stuff. And so it's very little. They didn't carry too much with them. And in the desert, when you're running, you don't really want too much with you. But now it makes a lot of sense. We just did them because most of the time we didn't ask the questions why. They just give it to you, eat it, stuff like that. But now hearing about this and hearing about these guys that do these Ironman and marathoners, how much interest they have in this thing, might have to incorporate them too and get them to help us. That's what I mean by allies, getting people to help us to do these things, because it's going to be hard for us in ourselves to try to do it. This young guy, he put this film out and he's going to do another longer length one, he said, but they're starting to have a lot of interest at ASU about this disease that's happening right now. And I'm sure if you guys seen some of the sword and around the buildings that we have out there in the departments over there, you'll see some of them, they have that hole and then that black's just leaking out, the water is leaking out of them. So, how do we prevent that? How are we going to take care of that? It's a good question, but as long as we start getting aware of it and start practicing and going back out there, when I go out there, I don't do the old way where they put the ribs together and they put the T on the top. I have what they call a painter's pole. You twist it open and you open it up and you twist it and you open it up because I'm out there to harvest. I just want to if I want to practice culture, yeah, I can do it like that. But now we got modern things, and Grandpa always said, use what's available. And so now I have that and I can extend that almost 18 feet and not put the roller of the paint roller on it and just leave that arm, and that's what I hook them with. And then they come down a lot easier. And so trying to just go out and harvest them. Sometimes, like I said, the birds they're the ones that are really enjoying it the most, getting a lot of hollow ones. They don't have much pulp in them or anything left in them. But, it's just the idea of still doing the things that I did growing up. Every year, same thing over. They tell us, let's go, and we went, and we did them, and I'm very grateful for them for doing that for us. In our village, they shared everything. We had guys that would go hunt them and sell you the tub full of them, come to your house, yeah, okay, because some of the old ladies couldn't go out there. One year when Grandma was still around and my mom, there was no hunting up there on the mountain. But for some reason or somehow, they knew that hunting was growing in Wickenburg. And so they went to Wickenburg to pick it, but it's state land and there's a fence there. And the highway patrol called my dad and asked him about these ladies. And he said, yeah, well, that's his wife and his, in-law and stuff. And that highway patrolman was kind of chuckling. And he said, but they got through that fence. How did they get on that side? And so he was worried about him, and he just said, well, they're picking that cactus, they'll find a way to do it. And I can just imagine somebody holding that one up for the other one and get over there to get it. But that's where they went to harvest, because they knew that our land is very extensive in our ancestral part, and they knew where to go to get them. So now we're fortunate that like the Forest Service and these folks, they're allowing us to start going back to our ancestral lands and doing this and to keep our culture going. We just need to get our people to start doing it. We need them to start going so that we can take care of these things that are attacking this. We're not sure what it is. I'm not. And hopefully the scientists will one day, academia will find a way. Our DEQ and our departments are working on it, but they're a small department. And I always tell them, get the people to help. Get us to help you. Help us, give us the things to do. Like I asked them, what could I put on this salt cedar that won't damage the ground underneath? Because there's still water coming underneath it. There's still water down there. So we don't want to spray it with a chemical that's going to go down there. So what can I use for that, to start taking away? Because I figure if we can get to them now where they're just little, and we can kind of eliminate them, maybe when the mesquite come in, they'll come in thick again. And we use the mesquite just for just about all kinds of things also. And the way that the old people used to make the forks for their vatos is they would go train those. They would cut the limbs off so that they would start going straight, so that they would grow straight. We can't do that now. I tried it and somebody took it, took my poles. But that's what they used to do a long time ago, because we knew that family harvested over there. And we knew that family harvested over here. So we didn't go to those places. We just went to where we always went. And those old guys, I know the Santa Cruz, some of those folks from there, the old guys would actually, when they piled their wood there, they would put something there that we knew it was theirs. And then we just leave it there. Nobody would bother it. If you needed some and you asked them, they would bring it to you. They'd load up and bring you a load. Hey, I need some wood. Okay, we'll bring it over. And that's how the village survived. That's how they shared. Everybody did stuff like that. So I hope that you guys buy my jewelry, I know. I hope that when you do, or if you do have one, that you will understand where I'm coming at when those designs are on there. Understand what's coming from here when I put it there. And it's not just a design, it has a meaning for me when I do it. I don't sell on the internet. I don't really do that because I can't tell you what that design means on there. You can't get that feeling from it. And I believe it's because of what I use as the material for it. I believe it's the cactus that does that, the Saguaro. So I just want to see if any of you have any questions. Anybody have anything you want to ask about this or the art or anything else like that I can help you with? I'm open for questions now. So go ahead. If I can't, I'll ask somebody. They said that, you mean like this hump right here? This one? Yeah. They said that the water was real bad that time. Oh, okay. So that the drought, it didn't rain. And so they're thinking that that's what caused that. Because inside is that sponge, that's inside there, and that's what holds the water. And so they were saying that they think that's what happened at that time. So when they're looking at these, you can see that rings there, here. It kind of shows that at that time, probably they all suffered that same fate, that same drought. And I bet if we look back and calculate the age and all that, we probably would find that there was a time that we didn't have that water even coming. So when I was saying that these things do tell us something, we can see it, yeah. And most of the moisture and everything is on the top. It's just like your up here. If you get too hot, you have to cool off here. They're kind of the same way. Nobody really knows because, like I said, some years it'll only grow 1 inch in 10. But sometimes, how do you say, and I believe it's probably the water that does it too. I'm not sure. That's something that we're trying to find out. Exactly that. Why? Because the one outside, my mom, I know it's, well, I can't say I don't know it because I am over 60, so it might be close to that. But I don't think it is that old, and it's getting its first arm. So it's not acting like they used to. It's our mesquites are doing the same things. Our Palo Verde, we're getting a milk. The beans are coming in December on some of the mesquite. We're not sure. I think that's probably climate change that's doing it for them. That's something that I hope somebody does investigate more and find out that question, because I think that would really be able to answer a lot more of what is happening here. In the infancy stage of these things, you know, and they grows, why did it take that long? You know, inside between here and the ribs, it's real wet, moist. And inside the cactus, there's a spongy material in there. And actually these, when they're inside the cactus and they're still good, they're real flexible. They move real good. And so what we're thinking is that the water that's in here is coming out. That's the best we can, how do you say, the best we can think about it. Because I'm not a scientist, I don't really know about it, but the people I'm talking to, they're trying to figure out why that's doing that. And we've seen it. There's a cactus over there by the Lone Butte, going up to the Vicuiva Casino. And there's a cactus over there that we call him Fat Boy, because he gets big when it rains and then he gets skinny when it's not. And so he'll get big and, oh, he's doing good. And then, oh, sure, he's not. He's all skinny again. And the way our rain has been fluctuating, we kind of can tell with him, you know. And so we're just kind of watching him, and he's kind of telling us a lot of what's going on. Because a lot of times before a storm will come, these plants will get ready. They let us know it's coming. They're starting to get ready. They open up, or a plant here, a leaf might start opening or whatever, because they want to catch whatever rain's coming. And so the important part about that is also is that we're, as an indigenous folks, as a people from the desert, our songs, our traditions, we're supposed to use those to call that and bring that rain with it, you know, so that it covers our land. You know, that's what it's about. That's what this is about, is trying to utilize what we learned growing up as a people who have lived in this area forever. We have never been anywhere else. But as a people that live here, we want to be able to try to continue that. But how are we going to help him? That's our relative. How are we going to help him? You know, how are we going to help our relatives to survive? That's why I started doing the art I did. That's why I started talking about it the way I do, so that just gets more aware. People know more about it. Maybe you guys will go talk to somebody, and then maybe they might be somebody who might know. They're not very a scientist. Oh, hey, you know what? I know that. Or they might be able to help us. That's the hope behind it, you know. Really, when you really get into the logistics of a saguaro, when you really get into what they have knowledge about it right now, because, like I said, they don't really know much, but there are some that have done it. 70 years for a cacti to reach 6 feet 5 inches. That's how they recorded on one of them. 70 years to reach just 6 feet 5 inches. That's a lot of years. That's a lot of knowledge in that cactus. He knows it, you know. And it says between 70 and 90 years old, but can take up to 100 years with less water area, with less water. So saguaros may never grow arms, and they call those spears. If they don't have arms, that's what they call them. I never knew that, but yeah. And that's what it says. So I pulled this information up when I was looking at some of it, because I don't remember some of it. But that's what it does. And hopefully that's what somebody will finally get into. It's that kind of a field, maybe, I guess you would call it. Not right now, but that's what I'm trying to do with this, to get people aware so we can start thinking that way, because it's for these little guys that we have to do it for. They're the ones, so we have to take care of it for these little ones so that they have that in there. Because can you imagine, like that man, he showed that picture and all those saguaro were there, but after a while he showed the same picture and there was only here and there. and the ecosystem depends on it so much. But if we can do that, like they're saying, I know that there are some saguaros in town that people have put in that seem to grow a lot faster. But then I also know those are the ones that toppled. They're the ones that fell over. So these guys, when you purchase one of these on that side of the line, you can pay up to $50 a foot for something like that or more. So that's why they're protected. That's why they try to protect them. But then they still do it, and you see that in these other places. But what they do is they get a lot of those from Mexico and bring them over. It's like our Ocotillo, the same way with them. We don't have as much in the Australias as we used to. It's very hard to find them there, but there's some in Santan and Zacatón and those mountains. They still have a few of them there. They're still growing, but as you go that way more, where less folks are, less cars, whatever. In Chio, they got big ones. Oh yeah, I'm always hitting the cousins up for those when we go on that side. Ask them to do it because they let us do that. They let us go do it as long as we can go do that with them. But that's a good question, and that's kind of what this is about. It's just to get it out there. And the way I use the art to do it is that I can get the interest in the art and then explain it to them later. It's just like capturing them in order to allow myself to explain to them what it is and why I do it. And if I have the cacti with me right there, the vape, the rib, then the more they can see it and feel it, the more it has an impact on them. Today, when I was talking to the folks over there, the garden there, I was showing them this walking stick, and then they were holding it, and they were actually started talking about the saguaro. So that's what I'm talking about, trying to get them at least to start the conversation. Because here we are, 2024, and in the last 2 years, the heat has been just unbelievable. The last couple of years, that heat has really, really been. And growing up in the West End, we never really had it like that. I never knew it like that. But there is, like I said, hope in a sense that, like I said, those animals were coming. But about, it's been a while now, a few months, but, and I believe it's a domestic one, but I saw a parrot out there. It was more towards where that water crosses the belt line and it hits those cottonwood. But a little bit further down from there, because it's running so much, the riparian plants are starting to come back. And if you go in that area, you can feel that the atmosphere is cooler. And just like Santa Cruz, that's one thing we always said about Santa Cruz is when you go, you turn, and if you just close your eyes and just open your window, you knew you were in Santa Cruz because the temperature went down. But how is this fire going to help? Is it going to hurt us or help us? I don't know. It's a lot of oxygen generating plants that were destroyed there. But as O'odham, we always try to look for the best out of it. So now that these things, nutrients are in the earth, things are going to start growing. And maybe that's why those animals are moving that way, Maybe that's why they're hanging out over there. I'm not sure, but I'll keep going out there to see them, and because it's something I've always done. It's just an area I like to do. The more we can control it, the areas, the less we're going to have people shooting these. That's the number one thing I think their biggest, besides climate, is people shoot these. And then they have holes in them, and on top of that, they just leave their shells right there. And so when I talk to the hunters and we talk to them, we're telling them to pick it up, clean up, pick up that stuff. It don't belong out there. You're doing that to our earth, And that's how we kind of can help to control those things. It's just by letting people know, hey, you know what, that's not good. Don't do that out there. And so my father was a police officer for a lot of years, but he always told me that because I was a tribal member, and as a tribal member and a road tribal member, I have the right to question somebody who's out there if they're not there and they're doing that. He said, you ask them. That's your backyard. Do you want them coming in your backyard and doing that? Then ask them. That's what he would tell us, And he would do it all the time, That was something he just did. But in understanding these things from the old people, when I say old, I don't use their names, my grandma and them, but they're the ones that taught us about this stuff, And the mom and dad took us out there to actually do it. And Grandma was the only one that usually went with us. Grandpa didn't go with us that much because what he did and stuff like that. He had his way, you know, and so we respected that. So I'm hoping they do, though. I'm hoping somebody picks it up and runs with it or whatever, you know. Oh, that would be so awesome. Make more. I don't want to get more cactus ribs to do my jewelry. I'd rather wait for them to do it naturally and come over and crash. Unless there's a lot of vatos that need to be built. Then we'll start doing it and clearing it out. It removes a fire hazard too when you do it. So that's what a lot of that does. Anybody else? Any questions? Any comments? Just want to say something, add to this. Well, I really hope that I was able to tell you guys how I use my art and explain some of this to you of why I'm doing it, and that it is a problem for us that's coming up. And if we pay attention and we just tell our people about it, the ones that are in charge, it's one thing, but to help them to do it is another. And that's what we have to do. That's all. Then we need to do that. We need to help each other on these things right here, to take care of them as much as we can. Because in the long run, if we remember what happened during COVID when the shelves went empty, when the shelves went empty, this desert is what's going to sustain us. When it goes empty, this is where we're going to survive. This is where the O'odham people will, because we grew up here. We harvest this stuff. We know how it is. But we have to take care of it. Otherwise, it's, I don't know, like I said, maybe it is just adjusting to what's going on. It's a good question to ask. I just know what, like I said, how the old people, and my mom and those ones, how they felt when they saw it. It was a shock to them. To me, not so much, because I wasn't old enough to really understand what they were talking about, you know. And so that's what I hope we do. I hope we can do this and start doing it. Anybody else? Anybody questions? So I just want to thank you guys for coming and listening to me ramble on about my art, but ramble on about our land. And I have a deep passion for trying to protect it now. And I understand what those old guys told us when we were kids growing up about this land and how we have to do it. And my grandpa told, one thing he said about for us men, the first thing that we're supposed to do as a man is take care of the land. If you don't take care of the land, we're not who we are, and it's not going to take care of us. This is what he told us when I was a little guy. And that always resolves, it sits in my head and in my heart all the time when I talk about these things. And I kind of did like the old ladies when I went out there and I saw all those ones laying down after that big storm about a year and a half ago. And I mean, big ones. They were just laying down and they were all green. They were still green, but they didn't have the strength to hang on. I felt that. I felt what they felt. I kind of got sad about it. And so when this young man approached me about it, I thought, well, okay, let's open up and see if he can help get this out, the word out, and start getting an awareness going, an ally. And so I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to share with you what I've learned over the years, and that we can always look to this to take care of us. This will always take care of us if we do and go ahead and take care of it and learn to eat these desert fruits more. We have to reintroduce them to our bodies because a lot of folks haven't ate them in a long time, and so our bodies don't absorb it like it used to. Those of us who are still eating this stuff, we don't have to worry about that. But for a lot of folks, when they do, it kind of messes with them because it's been a long time. And so we have to reintroduce it slowly. And the chocolate chip cookies, those kinds of things, you can reintroduce it that way. I like those. But that's what we can do, though, modernize it and utilize these things to make those things like that. And those are some ideas that we've had, that just, I think, pancakes. I had those kind like that too, and so, yeah, I like to eat, so sorry. Thank you very much for coming. I hope you guys will take something from this and help me to bring this awareness out there that this is happening for us, and that our culture is alive. It's right there. Thank you very much. You guys have a good night.
Wo ma ga re ga wo ma